time to put together the Cymbidium orchid and dust it. So I've got my half-width floral tape. I like a light green tape for this. And I'm going to start with the orchid throat. I'm going to take that narrow petal that we made, the narrow petal, curve side in towards the column of the throat. And remember, when you're bending these, try to bend them where you've inserted the wire, not at the tip of the petal. It's less likely to break. I'm going to bend this column back just a little bit to nestle into the throat. And you can see it's just below the throat there. I'll stretch my tape just slightly to release the glue, fold over the end and mash it, and then wrap it around a couple of times just to secure it. It'll move around, but don't worry. Just get it sort of in place before you go on. Then I'm going to take two of the frilly petals and I'll bend them back a little. And I'm going to place them behind the ruffled area of the throat. So on the opposite side of the narrow petal. And again, just having the wires sort of line up so that the bases are somewhat even. And I'm going to wrap it around a couple of times again. Now there is just a smidge of wire showing, and that's okay. It'll be tight enough that when you're looking at the flower you won't notice it. So you do want to have a little wiggle room. Final petals. I'm going to take these final two petals and I'm going to place these just behind the narrow petal. Here, behind the narrow petal. Give it one more little whip around to secure it. And then I'm going to, making sure the area that I'm wrapping around the wire is stretched to release the glue, I'm going to gently turn this, making sure that I don't knock up against the tip of the petals, and angle the tape down. And then once I've gotten the petal sort of out of my finger's way, I'll twirl it to wrap it. And there's a little section here where I didn't completely cover the wire. And that's alright because I can stretch my tape, go back up, mash and roll over, and retape it. And there I have it. Then you can move the petals around a little bit, again trying to move them down where the wire is, moving them into place. And now it's ready to be dusted. For dusting the Cymbidium orchid, I'm going to use a pale lime green. To make pale lime green, you'll want to mix a little cornstarch with your regular color. Lime green with a little cornstarch makes a lighter color. So you can lighten up any kind of dusting colors by adding a little cornstarch to it. The most intense part of the color will be where you first apply it. So I'm going to apply it down here at the base and then spread it outward against this frilly petal. And I'm going to do the back of the petals. I've done the other three. The narrow petal I'll do out to the edge like so, and along the back, starting at the base and going out to the tip. You want to be gentle as you get out to the tip so that you don't break the petal. And then the throat, I want to get down intensely in the base of the throat and work the color out, even covering the back of the column. Supporting the throat, the frilly part of the throat, I'll get in there with a little bit of the color. Just to give it some color. And then I'm going to use my raspberry with another smaller flat brush. And as I've done with the other four petals, I'll brush it most intensely across the very tip and then work my way along the sides of the petals there to give it a little color. So I've done that with the other petals, and I'll do that with the narrow petal, really getting it alongside there and along the tip. and then across the throat, again concentrating the color right there at the tip, dabbing it on pretty darkly. This is raspberry, is a nice color. You could use any color, but I like the raspberry. It really pops it out a lot. Good. Now it's got quite a bit of color here, so what I can do, I'm going to cover up my dust for just a second while I do this, is take a squirt bottle and see it'll squirt off the excess dust there, so that you can really see where you've applied it, and then you can see if you need some more, which I feel like right here I could use a little bit more. Right about there. Yeah. Now I'm going to do some opaque painting. So I have some clear vodka that I'm going to put into, I'll put it into yellow first, a few drops there, and this will dissolve the dust and make a paint. The alcohol will evaporate and leave the color. So start with a couple of drops. It'll make a thickish paste, and here I'm going to paint that bearded area that we attached, played out on the orchid. So I'll paint that little bearded area to make that stand out, and then the little ovary, I told you could paint that, and if you didn't want to bother with it, or if you really wanted to accentuate it, then you could add a little pop of color there to that little ovary. So now the beard really stands out nicely with that bright daffodil yellow. I'll do the same thing with the raspberry, making a little bit of a paint here, mashing it up so that it makes a paint. I can use a couple more drops there, and I'll use this on the throat to just add a little bit more interest. If you make it too thin, you can always wait a few minutes for some of the alcohol to dissolve, and it'll make a thicker paint. So I'm going to just dab it in here, dab it in where I dusted there, just to add a little bit more interest in there. And as I say, you can go back along the edge and add a little bit more in if you like. So you can make this as pronounced as you want it. And I like to add a lot of color up in there. And that gives you the color. Now along the back of the petals, I'm going to take my big brush and I'm going to add some full strength lime green, just to make the stem blend into the petals, and any wires that are there are going to get colored too, and that'll sort of make that all blend up as well. So now it's colored and it's ready to be steamed. I have my steamer here shooting out a big stream of steam, and I'm going to hold my flower about 5 to 6 inches away from it so that it will melt the gum paste slightly, causing the dust to adhere to it. And when it dries again, which will be in about 5 to 10 minutes, then the color will be set into it. Now it's ready to be attached onto a stem of flowers or onto the cake. And that's your Cymbidium orchid.